This is National Native News. I'm Antonia Gonzalez. Alaska's Office of Children's Services is defending its practices in a court case that began in August. A national organization brought the class action lawsuit, hoping it can force court-mandated reforms to a system they say is failing kids and violating the Indian Child Welfare Act. About 2/3 of children in out-of-home care in the state are Alaska Native. Alaska Public Media's Rachel Cassandra has more.
When former foster youth Matthew Vandenberg took the stand on the first day of the federal trial, he told the judge about a foster placement he and other foster youth called the Ramen House. He recounted his testimony in an interview.
The people there would give you 2 ramen packs a day, and if you ate them, say, in the morning, you would have to wait until the next day to eat again. I lost over 30 pounds being at that foster home.
OCS is supposed to visit kids in their care monthly, but Marcia Lowry says those monthly visits in Alaska just aren't happening. She's an attorney and director of a national nonprofit, A Better Childhood, that brings lawsuits against states to push for foster care reforms.
How else can you know whether a child is safe when you put a child in a foster home?
Lowry says that on many federal measures, Alaska's foster care system ranks among the worst in the country.
Alaska is one of the few places that I know of that hires workers who don't have college degrees.
Lowry says lawsuits like this can be an effective way to force system reforms. She says when they sued New Jersey in 1999, their system was one of the worst in the country. Now it's one of the best. Alaska's foster care system has long been plagued with serious problems. In 2018, a law required reforms meant to reduce caseloads and staff turnover. The final audit released this year showed that by most measures, OCS hasn't made meaningful progress. The Office of Children's Services declined an interview for this story, but in her testimony, OCS Director Kim Gui consistently pointed out that her office is just one piece of Alaska's child welfare system. The federal trial is slated to wrap up September 10th. In Anchorage, I'm Rachel Cassandra.
Recently, we brought you a story about a New Zealand man who was reunited with his Indigenous family in Canada after 50 years. He was part of Canada's 60 Scoop, and as Dan Karpenchuk reports, others who were taken away want help finding their biological relatives.
Jonathan Hooker of New Zealand recently returned to Manitoba and met his biological mother and other family members. He had been searching for them for years. He had been taken from them when he was only a few months old. Karen Strongwind had a similar story, only a year old when she was removed from her family in Winnipeg in 1973. She lived with a non-Indigenous family in Winnipeg. After years of searching, she eventually found her biological siblings and extended family. Strongwind and Hooker are among the estimated 20,000 Indigenous children who were taken from their families between the 1950s and 1980s. Many of those children were placed in non-Indigenous homes across Canada and around the globe. It was a plan of forced assimilation of Native children into white culture. University of Winnipeg history professor Karen Froman says most of the children didn't know about their Indigenous roots.
A lot of these adoptees are learning about their true heritage later in life, and a lot of them were lied to. They were told they were either, French or Italian, right, to explain why they were a little bit brown.
Froman says the 60s Scoop was part government policy and part misunderstanding. She says rather than address social problems, it was easier for governments to remove the children. Advocates say as many as 3,000 Indigenous children were sent out of Canada and around the world. They say there must be more support so every one of those children can return home and meet with their families and communities. For National Native News, I'm Dan Karpenchuk.
And I'm Antonia Gonzalez.
National Native News is produced by Kawanak Broadcast Corporation with funding by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Support by Sonosky Chambers Law, championing tribal sovereignty and Native American rights since 1976. From opioids litigation to treaty rights to tribal self-governance. With offices in Washington, D.C., New Mexico, California, and Alaska. Sonosky Chambers Law.
Support by AARP. AARP creates and connects people to unique tools and programs, helps conserve personal resources, and tackles issues that matter most to individuals, families, and communities. More at aarp.org.
Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.